Good evening, everybody. The time is 6:30, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Urban Design Commission, and the date is December 9th. And if I could get a roll call.
Jim Sawhill.
Here.
Monica Sullivan is excused. Jerry Winchester. Here. Nicole Ream.
Here.
Joel Condon.
Here.
Ed Leonetti.
Here.
And Joe Miller.
Here.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is minutes, which we don't have any, so we'll skip over that. And then after that is disclosures. Do we have any disclosures? Seeing everybody shaking their head, no. I have one disclosure, and that is for, yes, case number 2015-0114. It's being postponed tonight, but I just disclosed that I am working on the project, and I gained financially from the project, and I'd like to be excused from that case. Now we're not gonna hear it tonight, so I'll bring it up again next month. We'll actually probably reorder this case to the beginning, so if there's anybody in the crowd tonight, that'll be moved to the beginning of the public hearings for postponement. Okay. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda? I have a motion from Ms. Ream. Waiting for a second. Mr. Condon, thank you. Would anybody like to pull anything from there? Seeing nothing, that consent agenda, both items are approved. The next is unfinished business, which there's none. Regular agenda, resolutions of approval. We have, nope, those are already done in the consent agenda. So the next is the public hearing section, and I would like to ask for a motion for case 2015-0014 as it's postponed to January 13th per the memo from Ms. Ferguson. Motion from Mr. Sawhill and Mr. Miller. Mr. Sawhill, would you like to speak to your motion?
I can get my mic on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to postpone case 2015-0114 to the January 13th public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Sawhill. Mr. Miller?
No additional comments.
Thank you. And seeing that there is nobody opposing it, it passes, and we don't need to vote. Next on the agenda is case number 2015-012, Anchorage School District Public Facility Site Plan Review for West High School and Romeg Middle School campus site renewal. We have a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Planning Department's recommending approval of this final public facility site plan and landscape plan for West High School and Romeg Middle School renewal, subject to conditions 1 through 11 on pages 7 and 8 of your packet. The first two conditions of approval on page 7 are a standard that come with most of the projects that the Commission reviews. Condition 3, verify that the buffer landscaping standard is met within the platted 10-foot wide buffer landscape easement adjacent to the project area on the northwest quadrant of the site. The department's recommending this be a condition of approval. It looks like the buffer landscaping some of it might skew slightly outside of the easement. It needs to be within the easement in order to be counted as buffer landscaping. I've discussed that with the applicant. They're aware of the change that needs to be made there. Condition 4, remove the 2 parking spaces that encroach into the buffer landscape easement on the north side of the site and revegetate the area of the encroachment. The existing parking lot's been there a long time. It was noticed through this review of the site plan that 2 parking spaces encroach into this 10-foot wide buffer landscape easement. This is a platted easement, and that's not allowed. So correcting that issue that's where this condition of approval would deal with that. Condition 5, revise additive alternative 1 to provide buffer landscaping within the buffer landscape easement required by the underlying plat. So additive alternative 1 is about renovating the parking lot on the front end of the school, between the school, Romig Middle School, and and Minnesota Boulevard. And so in that area, they're not showing the buffer landscaping within that easement. This is an area where they're doing work, and so this condition of approval would meet that requirement, satisfying the buffer landscape easement. Condition 6, resolve with the traffic department the location of ADA accessible pedestrian route from the northwest corner of the site of school to the school building. This was a comment that was this was a request that was made by the traffic department as well as the community council. Planning department's carrying that forward as a condition of approval of this public facility site plan. The next page, on page 8, Condition 7, resolve with the traffic department the location of a new pedestrian path along the south side of Hillcrest Drive from the existing sidewalk to the northwest corner of the site. So Hillcrest Drive, a portion of it has a constructed 5-foot wide barrier curb sidewalk, right? And then a portion of Hillcrest abutting the site has just a wide shoulder. And then there's a portion that has neither, and there's no place for pedestrians to walk except for in the road or in the parking lot. The community expressed a desire to have a sidewalk in that location. The traffic department has asked for that based on community concern or interest in that. Condition 8, resolve with the traffic department that the new bus driveway meets municipal driveway standards. That's sort of a standard condition with this new driveway that's being added. Condition 9, revise the lighting plan to include a certified lighting and glare statement as required by the traffic department. That was asked by the traffic department, and showed that all new lighting has full cutoff to prevent light trespass into residential properties to the west. That was something requested by the community council. Condition 10, provide a gate where the bus-only lane connects to Hillcrest Drive. That's so that cars and other traffic, doesn't try and use this bus-only lane. This was a request made by the community council committee. And then the last condition of approval recommended by the department is provide a pedestrian break in the fence along Hillcrest Drive where the old driveway is being removed and closed off. That was a request made by the community council that the department is carrying forward. The project design team is here to make a presentation on their project. I'd be happy to answer questions on the department's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Do we have any questions for staff tonight? Seeing none, I will bring to the attention of the commission the handout that was that was placed in front of all of us. It's a 2-page handout. It was not emailed to us, and I guess I'd just like to read that just out loud prior to the petitioner speaking, so that everybody knows what this is. So it's 2 pages. The first page is an email to Mr. McLaughlin, and the title is Letter Testimony on UDC Case Number 2015-0112, and it's from Mr. John Isaac. It says, "Hi, Francis. I'm on the Turnagain Community Council Safe Routes to Schools Committee and was planning on testifying tonight at the UDC hearing on Case 2015-0112 West High Improvements. Unfortunately, I have a conflict and will not be able to make it. Corliss suggested I send you this letter to enter into the record. I'm also sending it to Barbara Bundy, our committee chair, who will be there tonight. Please let me know if you have any questions." Page 2 is addressed to Mr. McLaughlin. It says, regarding Urban Design Commission Case 2015-0112 ASD West High Plan. My name is John Isaac. I reside at 2418 Forest Park Drive and am a member of the Turnagain Community Council Safe Routes to Schools Committee. Our recommendations are well represented in the packet and background material in the UDC case file. I would like to ask the UDC to recommend to the municipality of Anchorage that they work with the Anchorage School District to coordinate upgrades to the two neighboring connecting easements between West High and Belmont and Arlington Drives, respectively, at the same time that the proposed improvements to West High parking lot are being constructed. There are several reasons to do this. There's 4 bullets here. The first bullet says there are upgrades. Their upgrades are priority number 2 of the TCCSR2 Committee to improve pedestrian safety in the neighborhood. Bullet 2, given the intent of the proposed West Side parking lot improvements to route bus traffic adjacent to East School end of the Belmont Drive easement, it would make sense to improve the conditions of the easement and address safety considerations at the same time. Bullet 3, these 2 easements are crucial to the connectivity of the surrounding neighborhoods to the West High and student access to the campus. Recent fencing restrictions to access created by West High athletic field improvements make these upgrades more crucial. The ASD recently paved an asphalt path between the Arlington Drive easement and the West High parking lot to facilitate access. Bus stopped at the east entrance to this easement. Number 4, there would probably be some efficiencies and cost savings that could be realized by both the MOA and ASD if these projects were done at the same time by the same contractors. Thank you for your considerations of my comments. John Isaac. That's it. Okay. Do we have a presentation by the petitioner? If you could state your name for the record, that would be great.
Brianne Kiefer, and then I spelled out correct.
Sure, that'd be great.
Brianne, then Keifer.
Thank you.
Oh yeah,
Do we
could I
have,
switch this over?
Elmo, I guess, does not work.
Okay.
Is there a reason that Elmo doesn't work? We can't get Elmo to work tonight? Do you have some? Okay. Did you have something that you wanted to project that was the site plan?
I can speak to this
Okay.
graphic.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Brianne Kiefer. I'm with Dowell, and I'm here with Randy Ribble with the Anchorage School District to present on the Weston Romig Campus Site Renewal Project. So I'll go over a brief description of the project, speak to a small change that we're looking to make based on recent community feedback, and then speak to the proposed conditions of approval. So the project consists of 5 base and site improvements with 3 potential improvements. The first is a consolidated bus parking lot at the back of the schools that can be shared by both West and Romig, and it's a way to save room on the site. The second is a new bus driveway at the northwest corner of the site. This will allow buses to circulate around the backside of the school, thus avoiding one of the main driveway entrances, which can be an area of congestion. The third is to modify the northwest parking lot in order to accommodate that driveway. The fourth is restriping the existing bus parking at West. And then the fifth is upgrading site lighting throughout the campus. So this would be replacing replacing fixtures on existing poles, and then installing new lighting in newly constructed areas. And then there will also be a dumpster screen installed with this project. In terms of the additive alternates, there's 3 proposed ones. The first is expanding the parking lot at Romig and expanding the parent drop-off area. The second is new hockey rink boards, and then the third is 2 new tennis courts. So the recent change that came about due to feedback from the principal and then community members was in the northwest corner, and that involved providing another connection to the existing parking lot and then adding sidewalks to connect to on-site circulation, and that was the result of a meeting with the Safe Routes to School Committee. And if I can approach the chair, I can pass out a
Sure.
paper with that sketch.
Thank you.
And that's on the second page. And so then to go over the proposed conditions of approval, we are happy to meet all the conditions, and then we do request that you reconsider the item number 4, which is to remove 2 existing parking spaces that overlap the landscape easement buffer, and they overlap by about 27 square feet, and it's just the corners of 2 existing parking stalls. So due to the small amount of asphalt that would be removed, we're requesting that one be reconsidered. And if you can see this from there, it just shows kind of where the overlap happens. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes and 25 seconds left. Do we have any questions for the petitioner? Mr. Miller?
Yeah, and is that time reserved then?
Yep, absolutely. Mr. Miller?
So for condition number 4, where is that in the overall site plan?
It's in the northwest corner, and I'll point it out right now.
Any other questions, Mr. Miller?
Sorry. No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Condon?
Yeah, Ms. Kiefer, about those 2 parking spots, you're already at 111 parking spaces more than are required, and if you go with alternative 1, you're going to add another 66 spots to above and beyond what's required. So it seems to me that removing 2 parking stalls wouldn't be such a burden.
Yeah, it won't affect the parking counts. It was just more to do with that it's a really small corner of the existing asphalt, and it doesn't completely impede on the 10-foot buffer. There's still room to put landscaping around it.
Okay.
And we understand the principle behind it. You don't want to have a parking lot overlapping the easement. So we can accommodate that. We were just hoping that the commission could reconsider it due to the small surface area.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. Mr. Sahel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question relates to the request by the Community Council to provide additional pedestrian connections to the neighborhood. Could you show me where on the map those would be, and what do you think about that idea?
Sure. So one of them is a trail on the west side, which is outside of the property, and I'll point it out right here.
Okay.
And so we were aware of that trail, and so as part of this project, we put in a crosswalk and curb cuts in order for pedestrians to make that connection. We would request that that not be a condition of approval due to that it's a trail off-site, although I think ASD is glad to hear that as a concern from the public, as something that they can work with the municipality to improve. I think it's, it's good to know that those conditions are there.
Right. And where's the second one that they would?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's in the southwest corner outside of the property area.
And how long are those trails? Like one lot depth, like 100 feet, or?
I believe the west side one is the depth of a lot, and then it connects to a street immediately. And I'm not as familiar with the one in the southwest, and I imagine that some of the public representatives could speak to that better.
Okay. And I understand as a policy, the school district doesn't like to do anything off their site. They like to keep all their improvements within their site. But is anyone talked to MOA? Are they willing to go build these for you? Has there been any coordination?
Not yet, just because it's been a recent item on or consideration. And so I think moving forward, like maybe during construction, that would be something that could be brought, or before construction, something that could be coordinated. But we weren't considering it as a part of the design.
Okay. And you would prefer not to see a condition of approval that requires you to build those two walkways?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sahel. Anybody else have any other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the routing of the buses through the Dempsey Ice Arena, is that, I assume that's been coordinated with them, and is that part of ASD? Do they run the Dempsey Ice Arena?
No, that'd be Parks and Recreation, and there's an access agreement that they have in writing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Seeing no other hands up. Oh, Mr. Condon. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I do have a question on sheet L2-203, the landscape plan. You're showing a snow removal area on that, the north side of that sheet. And I see there are some 18-inch bushes planted along there. Do you think are those going to withstand a winter's worth of snow on top of them?
And that, I'm sorry, Commissioner Condon, is that sheet L201?
No, L203.
And as a part of one of the conditions of approval, those shrubs will actually be relocated into the easement. So in order to meet one of the conditions, we'll be relocating those. Did that answer your question?
There will be no shrubs in that location?
In the snow storage location, because of one of the conditions, proposed conditions of approval, we would need to relocate those shrubs. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. So
okay.
You agree that that's not the right kind of plant to have in a snow storage area?
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. Looks like that's it for the questions for now, so we'll open up the public hearing, and I'll read this little blurb here. So the procedure by which the public may speak to the Urban Design Commission at this meeting is, 1, after the staff presentation is completed on the public hearing items, the chair will ask for the public testimony on issue. 2, persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Urban Design Commission Rules of Procedures, which is A, petitioners, including all his or her representatives, is 10 minutes, with rebuttal by the petitioner may be allowed when time has been reserved. B, representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., is 5 minutes, and individuals are 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questions are asked by the commission. Number 4, an individual may have appeal rights relating to an action by the Urban Design Commission to any action the Urban Design Commission takes, except the commission recommendations to the assembly which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after the approval of the Urban Design Commission of the resolution, which is the commission's final decision. The fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. Do we have anybody that would like to speak? Come on up to the mic if you would. Looks like there's 2 people. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Brianne had to put it up and I have to put it down.
Spell your name, that would be great.
My name is Barbara Bundy, B-A-R-B-A-R-A-B-U-N-D-Y. And I'm the co-chair of the Turnagain Community Council Safe Routes to School Committee, and we have been tasked to represent the Community Council on our comments on this project. And we did submit a letter, and I think that briefly, what we are doing as a group is trying to make the West Romig campus more walkable and encourage better separation of motorized and non-motorized traffic. And we've worked pretty closely with the municipality. We've worked with the school district a little bit as well. And we got the opportunity to comment on this, and we asked for a couple of changes, mostly related to the pedestrian access at the bus. We are in support of the project. We support separating the bus traffic to the west side of campus, where students who are walking from their cars don't have to cross bus traffic. And we did ask for a couple of changes to the project as it was originally shown to us, and those changes are reflected here, some in the packet and some in the conditions. We primarily want 2 things. We want some work done consistent with projects we've identified, and that includes the sidewalk, and then we also don't want this project to preclude other things that we have on our agenda. So I guess primarily I would say that we are in support of both the proposal and the conditions. I would say probably the main disagreement here that the committee would want to speak to was the issue of the pedestrian easements. So the pedestrian easements, there's one of them that goes...
Excuse me, Ms. Bundy, could you take the microphone with you?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Can I do that?
Yep, there's a little bit of a court. There you go.
Okay. Oh, there we go. So this one is the Belmont easement. It is one lot long, and it goes over to Belmont Drive, and it serves a bunch of houses back in here. And this one on this end is the Arlington Drive easement, and it kind of goes in like a little sort of it has 2 corners in it, and so I believe it goes like around a lot, so it's probably like 2 lots long. The Arlington one is longer. They are both in terrible shape. We did pull the plats. They are owned by the municipality. I know the school district doesn't like to do things off their property, but we've been beating the drum, and we're going to continue to beat the drum to get these taken care of any way we can, because the only purpose of these easements is to access the campus from the neighborhoods. And we have lots of kids who could walk to school but don't, because it's not safe and there's nowhere to walk. We want them to walk, their parents want them to walk, they want to walk. It seems like a simple fix. The pavement is very buckled, so it needs to be graded, it needs to be paved. I don't think it's a huge project, but we're hoping to get this done any way we can. We support that. Like I said, I think we support everything else that's in here. We're very pleased that Dowell and Cumin worked with us, even though they were far along in their design process. They did make time to sit down with us and incorporate our comments, so we're really happy with that. And what have I forgotten? The other committee members here. So thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. And if you have any interest in knowing about our projects, we have a whole packet of descriptions of things we'd like to see done around Reston Romig.
Okay, great. Thank you. You have 1:35 left.
I'll skip my interpretive dance.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Bundy? Oh, looks like we have one for Mr. Condon. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. These trails, are they lighted at all? Is there any kind of lighting?
Well, there is There are streetlights at the ends of them, on the ends. I know that's true on Belmont, but I don't know about Arlington. Sandy, do you? I can speak to Arlington. Yeah, Sandy lives right by the Arlington one, so he can tell you about that one. The Belmont one is pretty decently lighted because there's a street light on either end and it's pretty short.
So it's fairly well lit for the length of the walkway?
The Belmont one is, yeah. That's this one right here.
Okay, so you wouldn't be asking for any kind of upgrade to lighting? You just want the pavement resurfaced, replaced?
For the Belmont one, I don't know about, Sandy will speak to the Arlington one, but yeah, the pavement is the main concern. It's extremely buckled. Like, you're sort of like walking on a, ship that's, that's the main part of it that's unsafe. And it's unsafe enough that people can't really bike through it. You can walk through it if you stick to like one side.
Yeah.
The neighbors keep it up. They tie trash bags up, and so people have a place to put garbage. And there are people who sort of work at maintaining it, but they can't pave it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like the kind of project that the municipality should be working on. I could understand the school district pushing back on that,
Yeah.
even though it does sound like an important linkage to the neighborhood.
And it's consistent with both the policies cited here and with the West Romig Master Plan, which has as a main goal to improve, sort of to promote the campus as a kind of a community center. And that's where people come from. I mean, unlike some of the other high schools, it's in the middle of a neighborhood, and people that's the only reason you use that pass through is to access the campus, really.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what to do.
We're going to continue to beat the drum as much as we can. I mean, we want to see somebody do that, and we'd love to see it as part of this project. If that is not possible, we'll continue to request that from the city. They know that we want it.
Okay.
It's on our CIP list as well.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. Mr. Sahel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when you pulled the plats for the walkways, how wide are the easements or right-of-way for the walkways?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, 10 or 12 feet. It's like a standard, when the subdivision is created.
And how wide are the walkways that are there? Are they 5 or 10 feet wide?
Oh, no, I think they're 4.
4?
4 or 5, yeah.
And are there fences on each side of them?
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of like a tunnel. Yeah.
Sort of. Some of the fences are chain link, especially, I believe, on the Arlington one. Yeah.
Okay. And when you're using them, you feel safe using those?
It's fine from a perspective. I walk my dog through the Belmont one all the time, and and run through there, and it's fine from a safety perspective, except that I think I'm going to break my neck on the ice because it's sloped about like that.
Okay.
But in terms of like personal safety, I think that it's fine. The Arlington one might need lights. I don't know. Sandy can speak to that, but.
And have you developed any proposed condition of approval that you would like us to add to this?
We did not.
Did you come up with any wording to make it easy for us?
Yeah, I could. A proposed condition of approval would be to right, to add on to the project to improve, to repave the two easements between the neighborhood and the campus. I mean, as Brianne noted, they did improve. There's like a paved trail that goes all the way to this
Ms.
one.
Bundy, can you grab the mic?
Sorry. There's a paved trail that goes all the way, a brand new paved trail that goes all the way to the Arlington one, and then it's like going from the U.S. to Canada. It's just like you cross the border and everything, the quality of the pavement just completely declines. It's very jarring. So we would say as a proposed condition that the easements be graded and repaved so that they're in safe using condition for students and others who are accessing the campus.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not an engineer, so.
Thank you, Mr. Sahel. Mr. Miller?
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of had the same question. I wasn't quite sure what you were asking of us.
Yeah.
I guess my question would be: Have you talked to the municipality about it, and what are their thoughts? Are they willing to partner with ASD on it?
I mean, I think they're willing to. You know, we have talked to them about it, and so we've talked to the municipality about it in a couple of different ways. We have talked with the municipal traffic engineer and toured the site with her and got her thoughts on it. We have also presented our projects to the assembly, the municipal assembly, and to our representatives on the assembly. And it is on our capital improvements project list that the Trinity Community Council submitted to the municipality. And so, I mean, they're aware of it. I can't speak to what they think of it. I assume they'd be willing to partner. They seem in favor of it. I think it seems like a small thing to them, but it's a big thing to us.
Right, and I understand the need for it. I think
Yeah.
that the implementation of it is quite a bit more complicated than you might realize, and quite a bit more expensive. I mean, there might be easements. It's not just a matter of tearing it up and repaving. There's drainage. There's, design criteria.
Right.
So it's kind of hard for us to put a condition on it without knowing more about that.
Right.
And you're right, now is the time to do it, but we don't really have much to work with.
I understand that, and one of the challenges for us has been it's sort of easy for us to get time with the municipality and to stand up and say we want this, we want that, but it's much more difficult to become integrated into like the master planning process. So we're not hearing about these things at the stage where things are already at like 90% design. So I understand that that is difficult and expensive, and then there's permitting and everything else, but
Okay, yeah, I don't know how I would create a condition that
Right.
could even address that without, I mean, there's quite a bit of, quite a lot of moving pieces in it.
right. Yep, we understand.
And the main problem is just the condition of the pavement. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. McLaughlin, you had a question? or
Thank you,
comment?
Ms. Bundy. My house adjoins a public walkway like these. It's a publicly dedicated walkway. Mine's only 5 foot wide, but we should remove the term easement because an easement's an encumbrance on top of someone's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
a,
fine.
yeah.
But my walkway was recently improved by the municipality. Lori Skanke, the non-motorized transportation
Yeah,
coordinator, she has a 3-person dedicated office to making trail and sidewalk improvements throughout the city, and she's got funds from our bonds and things like that. Has she commented on where this fits? Because she has a numbered list and a priority. There's a whole process to it. And Isabel Roy looks at landscaping and grading and drainage. They look at lighting, whether or not there needs to be a public trash can there, those sorts of things. But at the simplest level, they got to make sure they don't repave it in a way that, I mean, if it's existing, but they couldn't repave it and have it drain onto somebody's property
Right.
and be liable, or that's, I don't know if there's topography involved. Also, one of the walkways, it appears to go directly, does it go to the Dempsey Ice Arenas, or does it?
No.
It goes to the school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they both do. Yeah, we have talked to Lori Skanke early in our process, and I think we sort of, her email inbox got full, and we sort of stopped talking to her, but we should reinitiate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're doing all the right things. You know more than I do about what it takes to get a project realized.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, no, it sounds like you're doing all the right things, following a proper process. But I would certainly, I mean, I know it's hard for people to take time out of their days to go in person, but I would meet, make an appointment to meet with her.
Yeah, and I met her in the summer. We met with the Anchorage Park Foundation as well to talk about some possible partnering, and it's something that we're continuing to have. We're going to continue to sort of try and bark up every tree we can on it. I do think that one of the big things that's going to help with safety around West, and I live on Esquire Drive, so just on the other side of the trailer park, is the sidewalk on Hillcrest.
Yeah.
Because you see kids all the time, and especially since it's on school district property, they'll clear it. Because you see kids all the time just sort of on the berms, kind of balancing on the snow berms.
Through the chair, Ms. Bundy, are there bollards at either ends of these public walkways?
I don't think so. No.
Sometimes like a wooden post is put in so that
Yeah, no, I don't
no one
think
tries
so.
to take a motorized, motorcycle through there. So there is one.
Is there one at the Arlington one?
Maybe, it sounds like there's some other people in the audience that would like to speak to this,
Yeah.
so if we could close the questions on with Ms. Bundy, then we can have more people speak. So it looks like that is all the questions for Ms. Bundy. Thank you for coming out tonight. Anybody else? Looks like there's another hand. Come on forward, sir. State your name for the record. If you could spell it, that'd be great.
My name is Sandy Rabinowitz, S-A-N-D-Y, Rabinowitz, R-A-B-I-N-O-W-I-T-C-H. I live at 2613 Arlington, which is 2 houses to the south of the Arlington easement that's been pointed at. I've lived at this location for the last 29 years. I have 6 years of taking my kids to both Romig and West every day, trying to get them to school. And I would point out, one, there were some questions that I could come back and possibly answer, but I'd like to do that after my 3 minutes to make sure I get through my list. One, I appreciate your service on the UDC. I sat in your seats for about 3 years, and I know how thick the piles of documents can get and how much time it takes. So thank you for all the work you do. I've been part of the Safe Routes to School Committee for a number of years. And as has been said, we support the project. I have a few individual comments. First is that I point out that no one on the Safe Routes to School Committee has any kind of financial interest in the project. The motivation is to help kids get to school safely. And I would point out there is a no bus service zone around both schools, wherein if you live in the zone, i.e. too close for bus service, there is no bus service. You either have to walk, bike, or get your parents to drive you. So those are the kids we're trying to talk about. There's a lot of talk these days about trying to get kids to be active and healthy, and walking to school and walking home is one way to do it. So that's part of what we're trying to do. I would also point out that it's a good thing to make walking to school possible. It's a good goal to make it safe. And I would add that we shouldn't leave it to be the last thing on the list we do with our public money. And that's kind of what Barbara was, beginning to touch on a little bit. And I just wanted to hit that point. On the Arlington easement, there is lighting. I can't even remember how many years ago we pushed to get some lighting installed on the Arlington easement. 2 lights were installed. 10, 15 years ago, I really don't remember. But to get one of the light bulbs replaced that went out took 2 years. We worked for 2 years to get a light bulb replaced. If I had a tall enough ladder, I would have done it myself. But that's how, and we did get that finally replaced last year. So anyway, both are well lit currently. I would also add that at the Belmont easement, where the existing road is, and I could point to this in a minute, last week a car took out a piece of that fence. I don't know, Randy, if you were involved in that or not. I don't know any of the particulars, but I could see the fence was literally knocked down. I could see the tire tracks, and they literally went through the chain link fence and the metal posts and into one neighbor's fence. To somebody's credit, the chain link's been fixed just yesterday. So thank you for whoever, school district, or fix that. But the point is, cars speed through there, and you're hearing us talking about pedestrians. Pedestrians code word for kids walking to school that come through there.
Mr. Rabinowitz, I have to interrupt you a little bit. Your time is over. Perhaps there are some commissioners that could ask you some questions to continue your dialogue here.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Ream, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you please continue for me and finish your thought?
You bet, and I'm pretty close to done, so thank you. So that leads me to sheet C401, and I would point out on that sheet, you see the painted crosswalk at Belmont. Painting the crosswalk's better than nothing, and I support it, but 4 to 6 months of the year, it's useless. I went there today to look to see if I could see a painted crosswalk, if it were there, and I cannot because it's under a sheet of ice, a layer of dirt, and a layer of gravel. That'll be there until it all melts. So it's better than nothing, put down the paint, but it doesn't alert everybody to the fact that you're trying to move kids back and forth across there. So what would I do? I've got a few ideas. I'm going to rapid fire. I'll toss them out. One, I would raise or elevate the pedestrian intersection there. Painting it's great, raising it up, and I know we've got snowplow drivers that you know you have to take into account and their machinery and their backs and all that. But raising that whole thing up a little bit to indicate throughout the winter time of the year that there was a pedestrian easement is one idea. Second is put a sign on either side of the roadway. Pedestrian easement, you know, kids crossing. Okay? Just snap that out to people with those bright green signs. Third, you could add pedestrian lighting, lower scale light posts right on either side. Obviously it costs a little bit more money. Somewhere there were comments about making it ADA safe. I think that's a good comment, but I think you have to do a little work in the easement toward Belmont to accomplish that. I don't have time to explain it right now, but I could make somebody a drawing of what I mean. But you need a little space to create a ramp to bring it down to grade at the sidewalk. And what you don't want to do is have kids blow through that on bicycles at a high rate of speed. So you've kind of got to balance those two things. And the last one is, and I know you can't do anything about this, but please tell the snowplow drivers to stop plowing snow into the pedestrian easements. I've been digging those things out for the last 10 or 15 years every winter with my own shovel and hands. So go to sheet 400. And missing from that sheet, and maybe this was pointed out by Brianna, if I got your name correct, missing from this sheet is this Arlington easement right here.
Thank you. Take the mic with you.
Missing is the Arlington easement in this corner, and everything I just said about Belmont translates also to right about here. Because since these fields were expanded and numerous gates have been put up, which have been locking kids out of school, walking to school, the only gate that you can walk through right now is here. The only gate. If you're a kid trying to walk to Romig, that's it. So then you have to cross this bit of road. So everything I just said carries to here also. Now I realize this is going to be bus only. So you have a more limited amount of traffic and train drivers and so on and so forth. I'll stop there. If you have questions about the Arlington easement, I might be able to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Rabinowitz.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Everyone shaking their head no. Thank you for coming out tonight, sir. Are there any other people? Oh, here comes another lady. If you could state your name for the record and spell it, that'd be great.
Yes, my name is Gloria Manni, M-A-N-N-I. I'm a resident of the area for about 38 years. I had 2 generations going to west, a daughter, a granddaughter, and I'm very familiar with this passageway. I'm part of the Safe Route to School committee because when I heard it was formed, was music to my ears. And so I support all the communication you received about it. Testimony has been made. But I'd like to say that if you cannot put a condition, this hearing really demonstrated how many pieces we as a committee had to put together, speaking to the city, speaking for the part that applies to Northern Lights, we had to speak to the state. So we are left to doing all the patchwork to try to put it together. If you could express, not so much as a condition, but express your concern that indeed you support the improvements on these easements, which is just badly, badly needed, would be a nice wording to put in your approval. The other parties, I lived there for 38 years, I never saw those easements being improved upon. Now, trees are growing, what they're discussing about this uneven ground has to do in part to trees, in part adjustment over 40 years. God knows, that area was developed in about 1965. So gives you the time, we are not coming back to ask for this project to be done constantly, but once in a while we'd like to be helped in achieving that. If you have any question for me, just...
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mania. You have a minute and 10 seconds for rebuttal.
Maybe I want to address the one comment that Commissioner Condon made about the parking lot at West High. The more, the better. The place is used for theater occasions, for community events. There are major concerts coming up that every year is just overflows all over the place. So whatever is standard according to regulation is fine, but if we can have extra space, it's really a safe thing to have. Thank you again.
Thank you. Looking down and seeing nobody with their hands up, so thank you, Ms. Manya. And it looks like we have another person coming up to speak. If you could state your name for the record and spell it, that would be great.
Okay. Yes, Kathy Gleason, Cathygleason. Thank you for hearing our comments. I've been part of the Safe Routes to Schools Committee. It started 2 years ago when I was president of the Community Council. And I think we've done a really good job of putting together a good list that hopefully will continue to be incorporated into projects. I'm looking at the staff report, and the one thing that the Dowell and Kuman decided to incorporate based on our comment letter was a 5-foot sidewalk directly adjacent and east of the bus drive, and I'm not seeing that language anywhere in the staff report. So I want to make sure that that project is indeed included as part of the project that we all agreed to when we met with them and we discussed this, and they're the ones that proposed that to us as a result of our input. So you might ask the project planners about that. With regard to that crosswalk that will come out of the Belmont pathway, I completely agree with Sandy's comments that you need to make that more visible. Paint on pavement does no good probably most of the school year. I think blinking pedestrian signs, the idea of maybe, some lower lighting, anything that will attract buses that are driving through, that kids may be coming out from the neighborhood right onto that bus lane is important. Also, let's see, what else did I have? Our committee did not discuss those 2 extra parking spaces, but we'd probably tend to agree with the petitioners that they're not that critical to, one way or the other, so certainly leave that up to the commission. Support certainly the long-term maintenance plan be part of a condition to this. We all know landscaping, because we all know what happens landscaping after the first year. So we want this to be a nice beautification. One of the key things that we think landscaping within the campus, especially in the parking areas, do is help that pedestrian vehicle configuration be a little bit more, be a little less crazy. Otherwise, when you have just a sea of asphalt, cars go everywhere, pedestrians go everywhere, and I think landscaping can help guide that. And so I am disappointed. The one island that we requested to have landscaping, staff report said, yeah, we thought about that, just too hard for snow plows. I disagree, and there's landscaping islands proposed in other places as part of this plan. In particular, if the alternative one on the west side or east side of the Romig campus, if that gets redone, there's landscaping islands proposed, and I just would have a couple more comments if you'd like to hear them.
Thank you, Ms. Gleason. Do we have any questions for Ms. Gleason to continue her? Mr. Miller, thank you.
Yeah, two questions. First, I'll let you continue, but could you show us where that 5-foot sidewalk is that you were referring to?
Certainly. They did provide us with a document that specifically showed it. So you'd have that 15-foot landscape buffer that's part of their plan, and then the bus path. And then they were going to put a sidewalk, a 5-foot sidewalk, just completely adjacent to this path right through here. And I think that's a really, really important element. We don't want kids walking in the bus lane once they enter the campus.
Okay, thanks. Could you please continue with your comment?
Certainly, thank you. And we appreciate that staff is recommending as a condition of approval that there actually be some kind of a gate at that very northwest corner where the buses will turn into the campus, because if it's left open when buses aren't using it, it'll be tempting for vehicles entering the campus to just use that drive. So a controlling gate is important. And we also appreciate that a condition be that they leave open an area in the fencing right here where there would be a drive. I'd have to look at what current conditions are. It's somewhere in here. That drive will disappear. But hopefully a new pedestrian path, especially with the sidewalk along Hillcrest, that being a condition of approval is huge. It is one of the projects that our committee identified, and it is on the Turnagain Community Council CIP list. And if that sidewalk is indeed installed as part of this project, then that pathway from the sidewalk into the campus, where we'd like an opening, I think would be great. And if it's designed pretty similar to where the pedestrian opening and the gate or the fencing is now at that northwest corner, it's, chain link and then another chain link in so that you can access it, but no vehicle could possibly drive through it, would be appropriate, I think. And let's see if I have anything else. Just wanted to reiterate, I think that number 7 under the staff conditions of approval of a new pedestrian pathway along the south side of Hillcrest Drive from the existing sidewalk is a really big thing, and we'd certainly like to see that as part of your approval. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gleason. Do we have any other questions for Ms. Gleason?
Yeah, actually,
Mr. Miller, go ahead.
regarding the gate, so the gate will be open when buses are using it. What's the harm of other vehicles using it when school's out?
I think mainly because of that pedestrian element, the pedestrians coming out of the neighborhood or from the campus back into the neighborhood. We just don't want to see a lot of foot traffic being conflicting with vehicle traffic. And the goal of that bus lane being located where it is, it isolates it from both vehicle traffic and, some pedestrian traffic. So I think it's a good idea to just bus only, and that's how the project was described to us. And if it doesn't turn out to be a bus-only lane, I think our committee would completely have to regroup and discuss whether we would support this whole concept or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Do we have any other people who would like to speak tonight? Hearing and seeing nobody coming to the front podium, that means we will close the public hearing. I'm sorry, that we are not closing the... No, we close the public hearing and then we'll have a rebuttal. Yeah, so you come on up, Ms. Kiefer. You have 5:25 left for rebuttal, and you can ask questions after that.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to thank all the members of the public for their comments. It's really appreciated. To speak to Mrs. Gleason's items, the sidewalk in the packet we passed out with the changes, those were the changes that were based on the Safe Routes to School Committee, and it includes the sidewalk, and it's also would be condition number 6 in the packet, and that was a comment from traffic as well. And then with that, a gate will be located past that northwest parking lot and prevent other traffic from getting in that back parking lot, kind of as a safety measure, because ASD wants to control through traffic. And then to get back to some of the comments regarding the trails that are off-site, I guess we just reiterate that the trails are off-site, and as Mr. McLaughlin said, that'd be a really great opportunity for the Muni Trails Coordinator, and maybe some potential funding through that effort. And then also to reiterate what Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Condon said, is that with something as small as a trail, it can be a small adjustment, or it could become a a big budget item. You just don't know all the details at first. So with that, it could potentially put a strain on the project budget, which is already strained, and that's why we have the additive alternates in the project. And then with that, I guess, does anyone else have any other questions? And then to speak to one of the other public members' comments about the crosswalk over here. It'd be difficult to make that a raised crosswalk because of the bus circulation. And then we're happy to put in pedestrian signage because I understand that the striping can fade away. So at least with the pedestrian sign, that would help. And yeah, I guess I can open up for questions.
Okay,
now.
thank you, Ms. Kiefer. Do we have any? Looks like we have Mr. Miller. Go ahead.
Is there at that crosswalk, is there any power there? Like if you wanted to make an electrical or a lighted sign, would you have to run new power, or is there, perhaps you don't know?
I guess I don't know specifically. There's lighting throughout the site. So that specific location I can't speak to, no.
Is there a light, like an overhead light right at the crosswalk?
It sounds like there is in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Do we have any other questions from the commissioners? Mr. Sahel?
What is the project budget? Plus or minus $1 million, that's fine.
Yeah, I have it. Or sure.
I'm Randy Ribble, R-A-N-D-Y, R-I-B-B as in boy, L-E. I'm the school district project manager. Currently, the overall project budget is $2.3 million for design project fees, and they're available to construction is $1.9 million. With all additive alternates at 95% design, we are tracking at $2.2 million per our investment. That is the reason for the additive alternates. We are willing to design and bid most of the improvements, as you heard tonight and requested. That's why we've met and have directed the design team to go forward to get bids, and if the project funds come in and to allow to award all that, we will award as much as possible. So that's where we're sitting. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Sahel.
That's perfect, and we'll stay optimistic for you.
Thank you, Mr. Sahel. Any other questions for the petitioner? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Kiefer. Case rests with the board. Commission, what is the wish of the commission? Do we have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Sahel. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Reem, thank you. Mr. Sahel, would you like to speak to your motion?
I would be happy to defer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In case 2015-0112, I move for approval of the final site plan and landscape plan for the West High School and Romick Middle School campus site renewal, subject to staff conditions 1 through 11.
Thank you, Mr. Sahel. So we have a motion for the case 2015-0112 public facility site plan review for West High and Romick School campus site renewal with department recommendations 1 through 11. Ms. Reem, would you like to speak to your second?
I guess I would like to speak to my motion before I defer to the second.
Yep, that's a good idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sahel.
I intend to support the motion. I think the improvements that are contemplated will make a significant improvement. I particularly like the relocation of the bus parking. I think that's going to create a much better situation and a better design. I'm also looking forward to additive alternate 1A, which will provide additional parking in front of Romick. I think that's also a good improvement. I think the strategy for the add alternates is good to stretch the available dollars as much as possible. I am interested in having some additional discussion with the commission on the issue of pedestrian connections to the west. I think those pedestrian connections to the west are important. I think we've heard from the community that they're in poor shape and need to be improved, but I'm reluctant to place that burden on the school district at this point. I did not make an additional condition in my main motion. I thought it'd be better to deal with that as an amendment so we can discuss that specifically without clouding the main issues. I did scratch out a condition that stated coordinate with the municipality of Anchorage the construction of 2 pedestrian trails to the neighborhood to the west. And I think one of the things I'm struggling with is that will be misinterpreted as the school district's got to do it. And I really am looking for the funding to come from the municipality of Anchorage, not from the school district. So I'm a little hesitant. So I would look forward to some additional discussion from board members. So with that, I'll yield to Ms. Ream for her additional comments.
Thank you, Mr. Sahel. Ms. Ream, would you like to speak to your second?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I intend to support the motion as well. I'm having a hard time with this as this pathway consideration. I do think that it's an important connection. There's students that do not get the bus that are in the neighborhood adjacent, but putting an off-site pathway into the responsibility of the ASD is also a tough decision to make. How much would that actually cost if we just could repave and regrade? It probably wouldn't cost that much. If we have to go through the drainage design calculations and put in a new subgrade, we're starting to add in new fencing, lighting considerations, that sort of thing. So I guess when I listened to Mr. Sawhill's condition, it actually read to me as though it was a work with the municipality to, I don't know if it's receive funding or get funding for the pathways. This is not, my grammar is at a loss here. But I think that's what he was trying to hit on, and I think that's the appropriate solution. So if we have any English majors in here that could help me say that with a little more grace, I think, work with the municipality to receive funding for pathway improvements that are very much needed, and how we enforce that is something I'm not really sure. Anyway, but I think it's a great project. I am a little concerned with the circuitous route through Dempsey, but I don't see a better solution. But it's tight in there. How many? I was wondering how many buses actually go through there. If it's not that many, it's not a lot. Okay. And I too agree with the bus loading zone being behind West High there. I could speak to a few findings of fact before we amend, if that's okay.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. So finding of fact number 1, obviously the purpose of the project is to improve bus circulation and site lighting to Romig Middle School and West High School. Finding of fact 2, this project meets the needs of the 2012 West Anchorage District Land Use Plan map. Finding of fact number 3, the project meets many of the goals of the Anchorage 2020 land use policy map, specifically policies number 44, 45, 49, and 78 per the staff packet. In the applicant's packet, I do also believe they meet policy numbers 30, 42, 80, and 89 as they had specified. And for me, that's really all I have to say. I don't have much more to say.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ream. So with Mr. Sahil and Ms. Ream's comments, I'd like everybody as they chime in. I have two people chiming in right now, but if they could speak to their thoughts on the idea of a motion or an amendment to a motion that Ms. Ream and Mr. Sahil were describing, that would be great. Mr. Winchester, you're next. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of comments specifically related to the improvements in the pathways. One of the things that I would encourage the local community to do is there are things like road improvement districts, and bringing in your local organization and really putting together a simple bond proposal that goes to the municipality to do pathway improvements in your area that only impinges on the taxpayers in that area can be done fairly simply, and you don't get into a situation where you're trying to impact the entire municipality and, you know, getting all the assembly members to pass the funding, and with funds as tight as they are today. I don't think these would be that expensive to improve, so it could be a really good situation for your local community to put something like that together that would add, you know, $20 a year to every property owner that's in that area of town. And those kinds of things have been done very successfully up on Hillside and other areas in town where they want to do improvements. So, and I'm sure the school district would, you know, support you on that. So I'm just throwing that out there as another avenue rather than trying to sort of push the muni to do something within that long policy stream and funding stream that you deal with there. The second thing that I wanted to mention is that there is power located and there's a light located at the main crosswalk that goes to Belmont. And I think that I'm not really going to add this as a condition, but I would ask Randy and Ms. Kiefer to consider putting a flashing light, because you could put it right in the median at that crosswalk, and it would just take one, and that flashing light would let everybody know that's a pedestrian crosswalk, you know, day and night with all of our dark hours and that sort of thing. And that in lieu of elevating the side, you know, the walk and doing all that sort of thing. And it would be a fairly inexpensive way to improve you know, the safety of that crosswalk. So those would be my two comments. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winchester. So were you suggesting an amendment to the motion for the flashing crosswalk?
I really wasn't, because I think by suggesting it, I think they're going to do it.
Okay.
Okay? I mean, I really think when they look at this, that between the community and the school district, they'll say, yep, that's a perfect place to put a flashing light, and it's going to be a very big safety situation for the school district, and the power's right there, and okay, yes, it's $3,000 or $10,000, you know, $5,000, whatever that number is. So I'm pretty sure they're going to do it without a condition.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand where Commissioner Sawhill is getting at with the added condition. I think it would be difficult to support, because I'm not quite sure what we're asking ASD to do. And I mean, coordinate with the municipality, that's too ambiguous. It doesn't really, I mean, it's not concrete enough. I mean, I think we all agree that those improvements are required. But how those get incorporated, and it's hard to put that on the lap of ASD. I will amend, I am going to amend the motion with the condition to add pedestrian lighting. I'll do that later. But I think that's a small step, but I don't think it's quite enough to get there. So I don't think I would support Commissioner Sawhill's condition, but I do think that we need to add something.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Condon, would you like to chime in on the topic? Yes or no?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My feeling is that you have, the community council has been given two very constructive options in terms of pursuing an upgrade to the path. Mr. McLaughlin gave you a connection in the city that you're aware of, or supposedly, and Commissioner Winchester, that's a very good option as well. I think that bringing this to the Urban Design Commission for some kind of motion, approval, impetus, momentum, that's not the way to do it. You're violating proper protocol, and I think that you need to go through standard channels to get this done. It needs to get done. I would agree 100%. It needs to get done. I support your efforts, and if you need this kind of verbal support, I can do that. But as far as actual concrete conditions imposed by the Urban Design Commission, I think that's outside of our authority and purview.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. Mr. Miller, you're alluding to a motion to amend?
Yes. Is this
Now would be a
the
good time to do that.
I'd like to move to amend the motion to add a 12th condition to add pedestrian signage to the pedestrian crossing to Belmont Drive.
Thank you, Mr. There we go. If we could get a second on that. Second from Mr. Winchester. Mr. Miller, would you speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. I will let the petitioner and the Turnagain Community Council figure out what kind of signage is appropriate, knowing that there's power there. That's encouraging, and I think that would be a good option. I don't think it's our place to specify the exact type of signage at this point, but I do think some sort of pedestrian signage would add to the safety of the students coming to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Winchester, would you like to speak to your second?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Miller, for going forward with that. It's as I mentioned, I do believe that they will do something anyway, but I think a flashing sign or some level of pedestrian indication of the walks, I'll be supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Winchester. Okay, so right now we have a motion to amend the add pedestrian signage at Belmont Crossing. Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition, it passes. We don't need to vote. So now we're back to the main motion, which is the case 2015-0112, Anchorage School District Public Facility Site Plan Review per AMC 2140-020 for West High School and Rumig Middle School campus site renewal with conditions 1 through 11 as stated in the case packet. And now we would go to vote on it, or yes?
And to 12.
What's that?
And 12 as amended.
I'm sorry, and 12 as amended to read add pedestrian signage at Belmont Crossing. Thank you, Mr. Sahil. So if we could start voting. There we go. Okay, so that's motion passes. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Next on the agenda is appearances, which we don't have any, and reports. I don't really have any other than the Art 1% for Art is going great. We have the criteria established, and in another 6 weeks it'll go out for people to bid on. Anybody else have anything that they want to add?
Yeah, just
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, question. We have
Sure.
another commissioner, as I understand
Yes,
it.
Ms.
Molly Morse, I think.
Morse. Yes, she is excused tonight. She will be here, I understand, in January.
And then does that mean we're one more short? Or would that make a full commission?
We would still be one. Yeah, we would still be short by one. Yes.
And we're still searching for that?
I would.
Yeah. Can I vote twice?
I don't think we can do that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Seeing no other hands up, if I get a motion to adjourn. Mr. Miller, thank you. Second. Thank you, Ms. Ream. Everybody have a good evening.